1862 was the year, Bannock, Montana the place. Nobody realized it at the time, but an historic event was about to take place. A young Danish immigrant, Conrad Kors, opened a beef market right next door to Cy Skinner's saloon. You see, Con was an entrepreneur. They used to say if there was a big gold strike on Monday, Con would have a beef market open in that camp by Tuesday. Before long, he supplied the beef for just about every gold camp in Montana. When the railroad came to Montana in 1881, Con's operation grew even bigger. He started shipping Montana beef to Chicago, and we've been supplying beef to a growing nation ever since. Conrad Kors was among the first in a long line of legendary Montana cattle ranchers. Hard-working men like Big Bob Ford, who was also an early leader in Montana's legislature. And Nelson Story, who led the first cattle drive to Montana from Texas. 100 years later, today's modern Montana cattlemen showed the world that cattle drives still present quite a challenge. Montana's Centennial Cattle Drive did more than just recreate an historic event. It brought people together, reminding everyone how important the cattle industry is to all of us. And now, as a new century dawns, Montana cattlemen are still in the lead, helping Montana prosper as we move into the 21st century. Over the last 100 years, a lot of sweat has gone into building our state's cattle business. And yes, it is a business, a $1 billion a year business for Montana. Now that didn't happen by accident. Montana's cattle industry has grown because of careful, thoughtful management. Today's cattle business is state-of-the-art. Like other managers, this businessman uses a computer to follow the performance of his stock. No, he's not following his stock on Wall Street, he's keeping track of his livestock. For many cattlemen, sophisticated computer software is just as important as a horse and saddle. The Montana cattleman is a professional business manager, adapting the most modern technology into his daily work. And this careful attention to detail has paid off. Here's something to think about. Agriculture in all its varied forms is Montana's leading industry, with total cash receipts of over $1.7 billion a year. Montana's top 4 industries are agriculture, tourism, lumber, and mining. Looking at a 3-year average comparison of these, agriculture makes up nearly 40% of gross sales from all 4 industries. The fact is, agriculture has always been the backbone of Montana's economy. And by far and away, the largest single component of Montana's agricultural industry is the cattle business.
It's the basic industries that makes Montana's economy tick. Agriculture is by far the largest basic industry in the state. Looking specifically at the products sold by agriculture, the sale of cows and cattle are the largest segment in the industry. They account for about 50% of all agricultural sales by Montana farms and ranches.
The taxes paid by the cattle industry are also very important to the citizens of Montana. Estimated taxes on agricultural lands last year were nearly $34 million. And grazing lands alone provided over $9 million to help educate our children, build roads, and maintain our quality of life in the wide open spaces of Montana. And here's another reason cattle are such an essential link in Montana's economy. Money generated by cattle sales is new money. You might say we're in the exporting business, selling cattle and calves to out-of-state buyers and bringing huge amounts of new revenue back into Montana. Another part of the cattle business that contributes to Montana's economy is the sale of breeding stock. As the birthplace of modern performance testing, Montana draws ranchers from all over the world who seek out the finest genetics in purebred stock to improve their herds. Montana's hardy northern feeder cattle are sought after by feedlots across the nation, and many are fed to finish right here in the state. Montana's cattle feeders use locally grown grains and feedstuffs to add value to our state's biggest industry. Here's the bottom line. When Montana's cattle industry prospers, everyone benefits.
We have a lot of ranchers come in here, and we can always tell when the cattlemen are doing well, because if they do well, we do well. If they're hurting, we're hurting. And not only we, but every businessman in town.
How you doing?
Morning, Ken.
Looking for a feeder today?
It's been well documented that the dollars from cattle sales turn over 6 times in a local community. That means jobs, jobs that keep our economy going. Montana's greatest natural resource is her land, but here we face a short growing season, thin soil, limited rainfall. As a result, most of this land is poorly suited for growing crops edible by humans. Still, Montana beef producers have found a way to harvest a crop from this rugged land. These grasses and shrubs are literally bursting with energy created by the sun. However, we human beings can't tap into this energy directly. Cattle are the essential link. As ruminant animals, cattle are capable of taking plant life in its roughest form, inedible by humans, and converting it into protein and nutrients for human consumption. High-quality grazing land is Montana's past, present, and future, and no one knows land better than range scientists.
The rangelands in Montana are the best condition they've been since the turn of the century. In fact, Montana has the highest condition rangelands of any of the western states. And since Montana is 2/3 private land, you have to attribute that improvement, and that significant improvement, to the actions of ranchers. What ranchers are best at and most capable of doing in many cases is understanding the inherent productivity of the land and then what they can and can't do. That's an art. That's a skill that one develops by being out here. We can't teach that in a university setting.
Cattlemen and range scientists are working side by side here in Montana, using land management techniques. The benefits are far-reaching. For instance, livestock grazing improves the quality of forage for big game. Without grazing, forage stagnates, becoming old and tough. The new growth generated by grazing is young and succulent, a favorite treat for big game. Of course, animals need water too, and once again the beef industry provides a helping hand. Montana cattlemen have spent millions of dollars from their own pockets building and maintaining stock ponds and water holes, benefiting livestock and wildlife alike. Cattlemen make other improvements which benefit wildlife, and Montana's wildlife managers recognize this.
I think we ought to work in the future and work together to make things better, and we'll have the things that we want, everybody wants, sound game practices and sound range management. You know, the interesting things, the very things that the cattlemen and ranchers are looking for, is the same thing wildlife managers are looking for. Healthy game range with strong native grasses, protection of riparian habitat that you can see behind me here, all along the streams and stream bottoms.
Yes, cattle producers are an essential link here in Montana, taking pride in their state and their communities, dedicated to improving the quality of life for all Montanans. During the last 100 years, Montana's seen some good times and some tough times. But through it all, there's been one constant: the cattle business. Today, the beef industry is much more than just a colorful, romantic way of life. It's a sophisticated, well-managed business. Still, there's a big difference between the way people do business in the concrete canyons of Manhattan, New York, and the way we do it in the green valleys of Manhattan, Montana. Here in Montana, a handshake still means something, and cattlemen are proud of that. Cattlemen have a strong commitment to this state, and you can rest assured the beef industry will continue to bring new wealth into Montana for generations to come. Working together, we can all help to lead a strong, viable Montana into the 21st century.